Welcome into the 2030 MLB draft as we start today with the number 7 overall pick after having not the greatest of lottery luck last offseason. We've scouted the draft as well as we could, got some players on our board, and of course these first 4 position players are really the short list for this number 7 overall pick. We'll see if we get lucky enough to take any of them. I imagine at least one of them will be there, if not 2. But let's get this draft underway right off the rip to start this episode. And that looks like Guzman. It is indeed. He was one of the 4 players. In fact, he was probably my favorite in the bunch. So I can't hate on that pick from Boston. And then the next pick is also one of the guys on my short list. Usually at the top of the draft, the CPU's going all for the pitchers. Instead, they're taking my players, shortstop Arnez. Now I'm starting to get a little bit nervous here as we still got 4 picks ahead of us and only 2 players left on our board that we were hoping to take with the 7th overall pick at least. Juan Valdez was not somebody I was looking at, so that brings a little bit of relief, but just looking at the 2 guys that were already taken, Guzman just projects to be somebody who is good right away and can kind of impact multiple phases of baseball. Arnez, really good power and fielding. Needs to work on the contact. Puckett there is a player our scouts had as the number 1 player. Rico Collado goes 1 pick before us. So 3 out of the 4 players end up getting selected before pick 7. I thought I was going to have a choice between a couple of players here, as Collado projects to be just an absolutely elite offensive player. Needs to work on his defense, but that's why he's a first baseman. Thought he could have played DH for us maybe as soon as next year. So Johnny Hill here is the last guy on our board. Now the risk with Johnny Hill, and probably the reason he's the last one left, is that he is injured. And so that could impact his overall and potential. We could end up selecting a bust here if that injury actually does much to his ratings. Not going to be the highest ceiling player. His overall and his potential are only going to be off by 12 points. So you're talking about best case scenario is kind of low to mid 70s overall with mid B potential. But even so, I think this is a skill set that can play early for us. Has a good arm, not a great fielder, but has a good arm. Has good contact, plate skills. Has some decent power to start off as well. And of course, we love our switch hitters in Chicago this series, man. The amount of switch hitters we've been able to take is truly insane. Fast forwarding here to our 2nd round pick, we'd still have 5 players left on the board, but the player I really wanted was taken by Kansas City, Freddie Miller. Again, not a player with the craziest of upside, but just looked like he could be somebody that could come in next year and be somebody involved in our bullpen. And, you know, we're in year 8 of a franchise. I'm more looking for year 1 impact than I am long-term upside at this point. That's why I really liked Johnny Hill. But I was hoping we could pair one of those 4 with a Freddie Miller in the 2nd round. Just not quite able to do so. Taking a look, all we've got left on the board are pitchers. I will say I did some work between last episode and this one on some players I didn't scout, and there's a couple players that I am actually kind of interested in that aren't on our board just because I didn't scout them. But of course, we're gonna take the players on our board that are scouted before we take any of those risks. Rivera looks solid. He's got a nice pitch mix here, 5 pitches. Foster, not great. Of the starting pitchers, I think Rivera is my favorite one pretty easily. Marquez here. Fastball, curve, slider. That's not bad at all. Mateo. really good break. I think it's close between Marquez and Mateo, but I'd take either of those guys over any of the starters in this spot. So we'll go with Marquez here. And then we'll simulate to the third round. I really wanted Freddie Miller, but he's not there. In the next round, it's between Rivera and Mateo, but we'll go with the starter this time around. We went with the reliever last time. Hopefully Mateo could be there for the fourth, and he's not. I was really hoping he could be. Highest player on our board now is Todd Preston. Kind of wishing we would have taken the reliever in the third now, because we have some starters available to us. But one of the guys that I really liked that I didn't end up scouting was Mitch Felton. Didn't scout him because I was mostly looking for power here, but he looks like he could provide pretty much everything but power here. Great contact, great vision and discipline, and great fielding. Also not very fast, but not your prototypical first baseman, but I think he could at least be a fun player and worth taking a shot on here in the later rounds. At this point, we'll probably take Todd Preston, and then we'll probably try to get one more reliever here in the sixth to round out our draft class. Rodriguez doesn't look great. Can I find somebody that I like better? Not really. Not great options here in the sixth, but hey, we're in literally the last round of the draft, so we'll just take Bennett Rodriguez, hope for the best, although I'm pretty sure he's not going to be a great player. That's fine. A sixth round player that's not great is pretty much the standard here. In terms of signing our draft picks, it went pretty smoothly. Todd Preston was the only guy that gave us a little bit of grief. Took him until the second to last session to sign him. Everyone else signed pretty dang easily. And so able to get all of our draft picks under contract. And now it's time to take a look. And Johnny Hill, 74 overall, 86 potential. Just looking at the potentials down the board, it looks like we had a pretty dang solid draft. But Hill, durability, not going to be too much of a problem at 52, but not the greatest. It looks like his injury did not impact his overall and potential, which is good. There's always a risk there when you draft those injured players of that happening. And Hill, very solid. His best thing right now is his athleticism. It's been a while since we've drafted somebody with some speed and stealing ability. I remember that used to be one of the strengths of this team early, because we had a lot of players that could do it. Slowly over time, we've been drafting players who haven't really brought that to the table. So glad to find someone else that can steal some bags and has nice speed. More of an athlete than a fielder. You know, he has the good arm, but not the great fielding. And offensively, everything's in a really solid spot. Nothing's incredible. But I think he can develop both as a power hitter and as a contact hitter quite nicely. I think that's a really good pick. Luis Marquez ends up being on the higher end of his ratings. I think his max potential is 93, so he's on the higher end. Walks per 9, not great. Control, not great either, but I still think is a really solid pick. Could be a player for us in the long run. Rivera, not the best. His home runs per 9 is really good, but other than that, he'll be a guy that can just fill some time in the minors. And then Mitch Felton, what a pick. 58 overall, 93 potential. Good contact, vision, discipline, and clutch. Good fielder. Not going to hit for power worth a lick. But my goodness. Took a swing on him. I was going through some prospects we couldn't scout because we didn't have the time to. I was really impressed with his scouting card, and I'm even more so impressed now that we have seen the ratings. I think this is gotta be the steal of the draft, right? Fourth rounder, getting the guy with 8 potential, and a guy who honestly, despite the fact that he's only 58 overall, doesn't actually look even that far away. Todd Preston here, not great. We got a couple of minor league starting pitchers, if we're being honest, and Bennett Rodriguez is really bad, but he throws hard, so that's good for him. Let's go ahead and take a look at some guys around the league, particularly those other position players that we just missed out on. Ponce here's pretty good. Reminds me of like a Buster Pringle build. Escobedo is okay. Some of these teams had like a million picks. Got a 97 potential here in the last round, but he's going to take 10 years to get there. Sierra's already a 75 overall. This is so weird that MLB the Show does this. Why do they make people whose potential is lower than their year one overall? That just doesn't make sense to me. This is the player that our scouts said was the best in the draft. I would have to disagree. I think he's solid, but yeah, definitely not the best player in the class. I think our scouts were a little bit off on that one. Solid potential late, but he's a terrible player right now. Couple of nice pitching prospects in the mid rounds here. Marcos Del Villar was somebody that our scouts were high on in Discovery. Solid, but that stamina is going to be an issue for starter. Then a nice high upside reliever. A lot of at least like high 70s on that team too. Edgar Arnez to the Rangers. This is a guy who I think it would be like a really good pick early on in a franchise, because I think he obviously needs to up his contact and his plate skills, but he has really good power, which is something I've come to learn in this very series is the hardest thing to develop in a prospect. So the fact that he comes with that, I think contact and plate skills you can develop fairly reliably. I mean, you're not 100% certain you can develop it, but I think would be a great pick if you're early on in a franchise. Kind of like we did, honestly, with Kevin Sandoval. That's a really similar player, skill set, although at a very different position as Sandoval was a catcher. But, that high fielding, high power, needs to develop the contact. If you invest in that early on in a franchise series, I think it'll pay dividends like it absolutely has with Sandoval, who's been top 3 player at least for the last several seasons, and especially in the bigs. Rico Collado here ends up being a 94 potential, and my goodness, what an offensive player here for the Reds to pick up. Not gonna do squat defensively for quite some time, but I thought he could have been a really good pickup to be a DH. Against righties, which you will face most often, he's not as impressive here. But I mean, when he's hitting lefties, he's going to be able to hit lefties year one. And would have been a nice pick. Even though, that hitting versus righties is more average than great, I still would have been happy at picking him up. Brewers here. They get Monte Young. Monte Young is actually really good. I should have had him on my board. I think this is probably now my second favorite non-first round pick. With our guy being first, just because, we got to play Homer a bit. But I actually think Monte Young's better. This is a guy that could play for you early. That's a sick pick for the Brewers. Nice find for them. Jorge Sixto is a nice closer here. He was also not available. I think he was the pick right after Freddie Miller, which we forgot to see because we've already passed the Royals. We'll go back around and we'll take a look at Freddie Miller. Ruiz, some contact and some fielding there. Pretty decent pick. I don't know if first base is the best place for him, though. Hewitt was on our board. Looks solid. Nice potential there, and a fielding shortstop there from Stephen Yee. just already kind of old. William Kane is a pretty good pitcher, actually. That velocity and break combination. This is kind of like the Esteban Acevedo build. It's actually really similar to the Esteban Acevedo build. Brian Valentine, a potential, and Stanley Guzman, who I think if I had the number 1 overall pick in this draft, I probably would have taken Guzman. And wow, look at all those 64s. He's got 4 64s in 5 ratings from contact left to discipline. But just really solid all around. Not an excellent fielder, but he's got a decent arm. And offensively, he can do a bit of everything. His power versus righties is kind of down, but he can hit for contact against them, and then can provide that more power against the lefties. I think that would have been a good pick for sure, but I'm actually pretty happy with Johnny Hill as well. He ends up with the lowest potential of those guys. And Freddie Miller, my goodness, this is below even his range. His overall range was 66 to 76, wasn't it? And 78 to 88. So our scouts did not do a great job scouting him. He ends up being outside of his ratings entirely. And a lucky miss there. Thought Freddie Miller was going to be great, but I actually I'll take the guy that we drafted, the 60 overall, with much higher upside than the 64 with only 76. He's like a year behind him in development, but has much more upside. Mitch Felton, I think between him and that young guy on the Brewers, easily the best non-first rounders. And then Hill, I probably would have taken a couple of the guys we saw above him if we had the chance, but we didn't have the chance, and I think we got the best player available for us at the number 7 pick, which is all you can do because you can't trade picks in this game. Not that I necessarily would have traded up. Anyway, because I liked the prospects of drafting Hill, even though it was a risk because he was injured. Now, turning away from the draft, we're going to hop into some gameplay, and today's gameplay is going to be a little bit different than any other episode we've done so far. We've done episodes where we've only looked at the pitching or the batting, which is what we're doing here today. We're going to be paying attention only to the pitching, but even in those episodes, I tended to, edit out a lot of the pitches and just show you the kind of the results of all the at-bats. Today, we're doing it a bit different. As you see here, we are down 3-0 to the Tigers in this series, looking to avoid the sweep. And we'll be checking in on pitcher Esteban Acevedo, who has been pretty solid this year, not spectacular by any means, but a good rebound year after he was legitimately awful last season and, got the disappointment of the year because of it, losing a little bit of his potential. But even so, just have to make sure we're on CPU here because sometimes I forget. Even so, I still, if I had to rank pitchers I'm most excited about on this team, I'd put him still at 3rd behind just the 2 first-rounders that we've had in Torres and Williamson. Even with that disappointment tag, I just think I really like that he's got a lot of, power, throws really hard, and he's also got a decent balance to his ratings. His home runs per 9 is a bit low, but other than that, I think he's got some solid ratings across the board. And what's different about this episode compared to pretty much every other episode we've shown is that, as you can kind of tell already, we're looking at all of Esteban Acevedo's pitches, not just the result of all these ABs. I wanted to do this because it gives me a chance to just have a little bit more of a relaxed episode where I can just kind of talk about, the channel, the series. We did this literally yesterday with my NBA 2K series as well. We can talk about the team. Just a little bit more of a relaxed manner than having, some action on every second to commentate on as we get the first out of the game. And this style of episode helped greatly reduced the editing time for this, which I kind of needed. I've been trying to get back to posting every day, or at least 6 times a week. I often won't post like on a Sunday, especially during football season. But I've been doing pretty bad at it, especially since the football season, because it's really been a combination of things. The last couple of weeks, I've had some sickness that's been slowing me down. But even more so than that, I am way less productive on Sundays during football season than I am otherwise. I can, record multiple episodes. I can edit. I can get stuff ready for the next week on Sundays when it's not football season. But when there's football happening, I'm watching it. I'm not working on my channel. I'm watching the Eagles, or I'm watching Red Zone, or I'm watching a really big matchup. I love football, and it's greatly reduced my productivity during the weekend, so it's been a bit tougher for me to keep up with these, episodes every single day like I was doing a pretty good job of earlier on in the year. I feel like I had a really good streak of uploading at least 6 episodes a week for a while, but I'm hoping to get back to it. And another factor that's been making it hard for me to keep up with the uploads is there's been a lot of games that I've been very interested that have come out recently, and that just eats into recording time. We've had Spider-Man 2 come out. I finished that game. I platted that game. That was actually the first game I ever platinumed, which was a cool experience. It was by far the easiest game to platinum that I've ever seen, which is why I did it. Modern Warfare 3 just came out. Been playing a lot of that. Been liking the new zombies mode. It's kind of a fun twist on DMZ, which I didn't really love in Modern Warfare 2. But also Assassin's Creed Mirage came out fairly recently. That one was a little bit more a while back. Played that one. There's still more games that I haven't yet hopped on it's been a good stretch of games coming out that I want to play, like Baldur's Gate 3 I haven't been able to hop on yet that I'm planning to. So, just if you're wondering why maybe the uploads have slowed down for this series as well as others, that's really the reason. A combination of NFL, a little bit of sickness recently the last week or so, and I've just been wanting to play other games. But a solid no-run inning to start here from Acevedo. Our team picks up the run to give him a little bit of wiggle room here. And we'll see how far we can get Acevedo in this game. But switching up now to talk a little bit about this series in general. I know interest in MLB the Show 23 is at an all-time low. That's what you expect when the real baseball season is over. The interest in the video game that coincided with that season for all of the sports games just dips, and it's been trending downward. But I know there are still a few of you interested in this series, and I'm invested in it as well. And so we're definitely going to see this thing through to its end. But I do think we are in kind of the twilight of this series. The team's actually really good this year. I think we will be a playoff team. My plan for this series is basically to go until we make a championship or until year 10. So we've got this year and 2 more. If it takes more than 10 years to go to the championship, I don't know. I can't commit, I'll say, to going past that. I'm not saying that for sure if, year 10 we don't win it, then I'm going to be done. But for sure, I'll go at least that long. I'll say as Sandoval makes another great defensive play. He's been doing that for years for us now. And so, the pressure's on a little bit. That being said, I'm pretty confident that we'll actually get there. I think most of the pieces are set for us. There's really one, maybe two spots. A sick reliever / closer has been eluding me, although Bartolo Ordonez is having a really nice year this year himself. But I honestly feel like I already have, the starting 5 pitchers of the future, and I have multiple options in that. I already have pretty much every position figured out. I think there's wiggle room for like 1 or 2 spots to change, but not much more than that. And so I feel like we have the squad that can win the World Series, and so I think if it's not this year, which I would say it's probably not this year. I think this year we're a playoff team, but not, a World Series team. I'd love for it to be this year, but whenever we win the World Series, that will probably be the last episode, except for a long-term sim. I think we're going until, like I said, World Series or year 10, and then we're doing a long-term sim. I do want to do that sim with this team. I've been inconsistent in series in which I've actually done the long-term sims on. I know that, but I am committed to doing one for this series eventually when we decide to call it quits. I'm going to 100% do it. I know I've said I'll do long-term sims for other series in the past, and then I ended up not doing them. But for this one, for sure, I want to make sure we get, the stories on the entire careers of guys like Mosqueda and Rincon and Sandoval and Williamson, who's still obviously very young. But there are some guys that have been really sick prospects, have been great for our team, and I want to see their careers play out in their entirety. And if we end up winning the World Series, I want to see if we can how many we can win with this score, because I think this has the potential to be a multi-time championship kind of core. And I do want to get to a point in my channel where it's not, win one championship and then we're done with the series. That's pretty much been for the series I've completed, kind of the format so far. I don't know if I want to do that forever. The reason it's kind of been like that so far is I think I have too many series going at once. I think after this series ends, or honestly maybe the Madden one might end sooner. There's a chance at least. I think going forward I'm going to try to stick to 2. I think there's a different way that I could get 3 comfortably, but not the way I've been doing it, and I'm not going to talk about that other way unless I actually do it. But so my plan right now is once one of those series ends is to try my hardest to keep 2 series at a time, because when I have all these series, there's a little bit of pressure, and it's just pressure I'm putting on myself. Nobody else is really pressuring me. But I feel like the optimal pace, I guess, for a series is 3 episodes in a week, which is very possible with 2 series. You upload 3 a week for both. You get your 6 uploads a week, which is kind of my goal, 6 or 7 days of the week, getting an upload up. You get 3 of each, and that's perfect. But with the third, and especially when we had the 3, we had both MLB series going at the same time, plus our there's 2K23 back then. There's a pressure when a new game comes out. You absolutely want to start a series when the game is new, because that is when there's the most interest in a game. You know what I mean? And you want to take advantage of that. It's the best opportunity to get new people invested in the channel and in the series. And so there's going to be a pressure to even add a 4th series with Madden. So I wanted to get that Las Vegas one done. And now with this, I'm just feeling a little bit of pressure to get down to 2 series. And so in the future, I would like to win the championship and then continue the series on a little bit more. See if we can win a second or a third or something and get more, maybe complete story arcs of a team in a series. I'm about a year into my, YouTube. Can't really call it a career. I haven't made a dollar yet or anything, but mostly it's just been a hobby that I'm deeply, deeply invested in at this point. But eventually that is my goal, to eventually start making money on the channel and to improve my product to a point where it's worthy of making that money. And so more people will want to subscribe and like and comment, and I obviously appreciate all of you who already do. But eventually I'd like to get to a point where I could do this and this would be my job. That's my absolute dream job, to be able to do stuff like this for a living. But there's a long way to go towards that, and I think one of my improvement goals is not only to finish my series more often, which I feel like I'm committed to getting a good end to all 3 of the series I have right now, but not only to finish them, but to figure out the best way to finish some of these series. Because I don't think just winning one championship and then saying, yeah, we had a successful rebuild and that's the end of the series, I think there are better ways to end a series. I don't exactly know what that is yet. I think I need to maybe watch how some other YouTubers, some other sports YouTubers that have been in the game longer than me are a little bit better at it, how they end their series, and maybe glean off of that. Because I do think that is a way that my channel can improve going into future years. And speaking of future years, I know it's still quite a ways away as the MLB offseason is just now kicking off, but I am, planning on continuing MLB content on the channel. This will be the last thing we do for MLB the Show 23, but I am planning on, continuing in MLB the Show 24 and beyond at this point. Probably only one series for the game, though. We did 2 for MLB the Show 23. I'm uncommitted right now whether it'll be more of a series like the Athletics or if it'll be another draft only. I know, draft only has become a staple of the channel, and I know a lot of people like it. So I'm not opposed to doing it again. I also know when you rebuild real teams, you get a chance for fans of those teams are often looking up, rebuild and franchise team of those teams. And I feel like draft only franchises are a little bit more niche, which I'm totally fine with. I like, creating original content. But I feel like it's a little bit less maybe discoverable would be kind of, there's pros and cons to everything. If I do, I don't know, let's just say a Rockies franchise in MLB the Show 24. I think that would be a good team to use, depending on how the offseason goes, of course. There's a lot of Rockies fans out there, or people just interested in a Rockies rebuild, and you get a lot more of those. I think it's a little bit more of a searchable, I would say, franchise. But the downside is there's probably going to be a dozen or more Rockies franchises across YouTube, and it's not as original. And the upside of a draft only is, you'll see people doing draft only rebuilds like the one-shot videos, but you don't see a lot of people committing to draft only long-term franchises. I feel like that's a lot more unique, and I do like giving you a reason to come to my channel over another person's channel because you're getting a different kind of content. And so, that's the give and the take. There's no answer that's 100% better than the other. I think you could even do maybe a little bit of a hybrid where instead of starting with a 0 overall franchise, you start with the Rockies. We're using the Rockies in this example. I'm not committed to using the Rockies, obviously, this early. The game's going to It'll be forever before the game comes out. But I do like the idea of rebuilding the Rockies. So in this example, let's say we do the Rockies. We could start with our roster instead of starting 0 overall, and then do a draft only from that, where we don't add any free agents or make any trades, but we at least start with a roster. Kind of like we did, we're doing right now with our 2K24, but instead of starting with a team's roster, we started with our expansion roster. Unfortunately, that's just not an option in either MLB the Show or Madden. It's kind of something that we can only do with 2K. You can make your own expansion team. I know, like, simulate your own expansion draft and do all those things, which there are some great channels that do that. TNJ is one that I know for MLB the Show 23, or MLB the Show in general, that does that. Simulates their own, expansion draft and does their series that way. So I know that that's a possibility as well. There's different ways to do a franchise, and like I said, each one comes with pros and each one comes with cons. If you have any preferences, again, I know it's months down the road before we get to MLB the Show 24, but I'd love to get your input. And boy, have we picked a good time to watch Esteban Acevedo. He has been absolutely tearing through this lineup. We're now up 3-0. I've not done much commentary on the game, but again, that was kind of the point of this style of episode. I just wanted to talk more about kind of the channel, this series in general, and kind of how I'm feeling about it. Even though we're starting to maybe rush through the regular season a little bit, don't take that as me being less invested in the series. Just maybe a little bit less invested in a 162-game season, man. That's insane. I've been an NBA fan for years, or 165, right? I think I said, I don't think it's 162 is right. 160-something. That's all I know. Now, I'm very new to baseball. I think I've had the comments update me on some of the rules now and then. Haven't been really following baseball for very much at all. And even still, I don't watch a ton of baseball. I watch some of the postseason here, but still don't watch a ton. But of course, I'm learning the game through the video game, which is honestly how I got into sports in general. I was not much of a sports kid growing up, but my dad bought me a football video game, NFL Blitz, and I loved it, and it got me into football and eventually into sports in general. And so I guess mission success on his part when I was a kid. So if MLB the Show ends up getting me interested in baseball, it would not be the first time. But yeah, this 160-plus game season it's a lot, man. And it's hard, especially, I think, when you're 8 years into a franchise, to be really invested in, what is this, a Thursday game against the Detroit Tigers? It's been a flippin' show for Esteban Acevedo. I'm glad we tuned into this game. It shows you why I like him. This is exactly why he's my third favorite pitcher in this organization, man. When he's on it, he's been not getting the best calls all game, too. I feel like his pitch count could even be lower at this point. But some of these 98-mile-an-hour fastballs, he's even clocked triple digits a couple times that are edge of the zone. You'll love it, man. And I think it's only really him and Williamson that have the capabilities to do that on this team. 6 scoreless innings here into the 7th. Allows a leadoff hit. You feel like he's maybe allowing one more hit away from being subbed out of this game. Nice change up there, though. Yeah, we got some guys warming up. Looks like we might be near the end of the day for Esteban Acevedo, but what a day it has been. Tonight gets ahead 0-2 here quite nicely. But I haven't been commentating this game very much, but I have been watching and paying attention. Really liking what I've been seeing here. Nice throw to first there. Gets the out. Maybe he can get through the 7th. Does have a runner in scoring position, though. Bringing up Henry Norris. I feel like I know that name. So many drafts, man. It's hard to remember all the players that you liked in all of them. But I feel like I remember liking a guy named Henry Norris who kind of looked like that. All kind of blended together, though, if I'm being honest. This one's hit well by Norris. Back and up against the wall. That's going to bring home a Detroit run. It's going to be a double. And that'd be interesting to see. I think that will be the end of the day for our guy Acevedo. And that will be Ross coming out to relieve him. Of course, just ended his tenure with the Cubs in real life. But been our manager for a while. I think his contract's about to be up as well. But watching Esteban Acevedo was really the point of the gameplay of this episode, and so I think we're done. I also got to say pretty much everything I wanted to about the channel and the series. The last couple days have just been me basically monologuing like a podcast through my episodes, so some of you might enjoy that, some of you not, and if you didn't really care about a lot of the stuff I was saying, I apologize. We'll be back to more gameplay focused commentary in the next one. Just wanted to kind of have a chillaxed episode after the draft. There were some things about the draft in general that I had on my mind to say, but they weren't as important as the thing I was saying, so I think we can wait for a future time. Esteban Acevedo ends up winning player of the game, pitching a 6 and a third with 7 strikeouts. Ends up getting those 2 earned runs, both in the 7th inning, and 6 shutout innings that were really nice to see. Rincon and Mosqueda both hit solo homers and had a multi-hit game from Carl McIntyre. But we're gonna end it here. I think we could maybe simulate one more week, but I think we'll hold off. We got a little over a month and a half in this season, and we've been going at pretty much a 2-month pace up until this point. And so I think we'll just simulate. We'll get through these last 2 months in next episode. I imagine, unless we have a colossal collapse in these last, few weeks, that will be a playoff team, and we'll see playoff baseball for the first time in this series, which will be fun. That episode will be coming out soon as we finish this year 8 regular season, and I will see you then.